What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Heel Deal podcast. My name is Ben.
And I'm Zach.
We got a loaded show for you guys today. We're going to go over a bunch of the UNC sports from the past few days,
Which will include the UNC victory versus Miami in men's basketball.
We're going to talk about UNC's upcoming game against Virginia. Super excited for that Monday night.
And we'll cap it off with an analysis of our upcoming recruits that we're excited about having come in for football.
Yeah, so the rundown of the week, UNC women's basketball, after upsetting number one Notre Dame, they went and upset North Carolina State, broke their undefeated season, and won that game 64-51. They followed that up with an unfortunate loss to Duke, 85-69. UNC wrestling this weekend upset number 11 Virginia Tech, 18-14. Men's lacrosse, number 15 UNC holds off Furman to go 2-0 on the season. They won that game 14-10. Women's lacrosse beat James Madison. They avenged a Final Four loss from last season. They beat them 18-7. And then women's gymnastics won against Towson. So now I think we're going to get into one of the big topics for today, the crazy overtime win against Miami. Whoa, you were there, Zach. What did you see? Tell me about the game.
Yeah, I was there, Ben, and first of all, it was extremely exciting. One of the more exciting games this entire season. And, really this was a close game the whole way, and that was because of the shooting for both teams. Both teams had hot shooters, shot really well from three.
Mm-hmm.
This was a fun game to watch. And you look at the statistics for this game, and Kobe White, again, seems like he can't miss from three. 33 points, 11 of 16 from the field, and 7 of 10 from three.
That's crazy, shooting 70% from three.
25 points just in the second half, too, man. Goes into halftime with just 8, comes out, blows out the second half with a big putout.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And also, Luke May was in double figures, 20 points, 7 of 15 shooting, and Cam Johnson double figures as well with some crucial free throws there at the end that really helped us get into overtime.
Yeah, geez, that game was so exciting. But do you think we played down to Miami that game, or they played up to us? What were some of the things you saw? Was it a strong showing for the Tar Heels?
I don't think it was a strong showing for us, especially defensively.
Mm-hmm.
Offensively, I think we did a lot of good things. But defensively, I think we've still got a lot of work to do when it comes to defending shooters. You saw a lot yesterday, just guys not stepping out. Miami's point guard played great. Chris Lykes was, awesome. He had 27 points, 10 of 23 shooting, and 5 3-pointers. The guy's 5'7". And you don't really see a lot of guys that height having such success in the NCAA, but he did. And partly the reason why he had such success against us yesterday is that we were hesitant to come out and guard him on the three-point line because of his ability to drive the basket.
Yeah.
You saw him do that a lot too. He would get to the rim and finish.
Miami's not a great team as far as their record's concerned. 10-13, they're 2-9 in the ACC. But I feel like they came in with a game plan. They had a lot of switches on the offense to try and get likes against someone that they felt like he could take advantage of. And a lot of times that was Nasir Little, which you'd think Nasir's so long, he'd be able to defend someone 5'7" pretty well. But he seemed a little shaky on the defensive end every time he got swapped onto Likes.
I definitely agree. And Likes, when he saw Nasir on him, would take him off the dribble without any hesitation.
Mm-hmm.
And he would get to the rim and oftentimes finish. And, really, the offense ran through him yesterday, but it wasn't just him. Anthony Lawrence II also had 17 points on 6 of 13 for shooting. They really just had a pretty good game yesterday. You got to give Miami credit. They played their butts off.
Mm-hmm.
Really proud that the Heels were able to come out on top, though. This is a very crucial win at this point in our schedule.
Yeah, well, it just felt like the first time we kind of got punched in the face and were able to come back. Because, our losses, Michigan, we got smacked in the face and really just played a poor game the entire time.
Absolutely.
Louisville, that first game, they kind of led us from the beginning. Really, this was the first time we had experienced some real in-game adversity and actually persevered, which this was an easily losable game.
Absolutely. And where it is on our schedule, in between the Virginia game and the NC State game, it kind of is one of those games that can be a perfect storm, where you see a really good team like the Tar Heels have, kind of overlook Miami a little bit in a way because they just come off a huge win against NC State where they sweep their rival, quote unquote, for the season, and then also quick turnaround playing a very talented Virginia team on Monday. So it would be easy for them to look this game over, but looking back on it in retrospect, I think they're going to be very happy that they were able to get this win, regardless of who we have after them and who we had before them.
Yeah. Hopefully it knocks them out of any kind of complacency, and we were fortunate enough to not drop that game. That would not have been great, but that was exciting.
ACC games are at a premium, and we've had a good start in conference play. Our only loss being to Louisville, sitting here at 9-1, which is surprisingly Roy Williams' best start in ACC play.
Isn't that kind of crazy though, considering that our one ACC loss against Louisville was the worst home loss in Roy's UNC career?
It's crazy, yeah. This is the best ACC start we've had, and yet we've had our one loss being the worst loss that we've had under Roy Williams at home.
Now, granted, we still haven't played Duke. We have 2 games against them. We have Virginia again. Let's take a look at our schedule and see, what kind of games you think the committee's going to look at come March as those big, what do you call them, quadrant 1 wins?
Absolutely. And I don't know all the specifics of what the committee looks at, but I do know that they value road wins very much. And they want to see you beat good road teams in your schedule and especially in your conference. So looking at this, obviously, Virginia at home will be big, but I think even bigger would be winning at Duke, which it would be awesome to go unsaid. Also, winning at Clemson would be nice, although they haven't had a great season. Winning at Boston College would be good. Really winning, I'd say if they could win 2 of 3 between the 2 Duke games and the 1 Virginia game, that would put them in a spot to potentially get a 1 seed.
Yeah.
Because you look at who the 1 seeds are projected to be right now, and the conversation is Duke, Virginia, Gonzaga, and Tennessee. Well, we play 2 of those teams. We have a chance to kind of prove that, hey, we can beat these guys, and we can beat them, consistently. So I think that would really give us a chance to be a 1 seed.
Especially a team like Gonzaga that plays in a weaker conference, the West Coast Conference. They're not going to have very many signature wins as far as conference play goes. And if we can rack up 2 of 3 of the Duke and Virginia games, I think that just builds a much stronger resume. And there's still tough games, the tough trap games. Something like Syracuse, they beat Duke. They could easily beat us if we have an off day. Florida State's got a good team. Clemson could show up. There's tons of opportunities. They just have to stay the course, I think. But let's go back to the Miami UNC game. Besides Kobe White, who do you think was an integral piece in this game?
Well, I think Luke May was, and not just because he was the second leading scorer, but also because he got some key rebounds for us, and that huge 3 that tied it. Was just amazing.
Did you get flashbacks of Kentucky?
I got flashbacks of Kentucky a little bit, but I also say last year's Miami game at UNC was very similar. It was pretty much the same situation, except Joel Berry was the one that hit the 3 to tie it. Good thing it didn't end the same as last year's.
Yeah, I was ready for lights to go down the court and nail that final 3. And Kobe was kind of playing him off the ball too. That was we kind of got lucky.
Absolutely. It's a great point you bring up about Kobe playing off the ball. And I think that's really why they had a lot of success from 3 yesterday. A lot of their 3s that they hit in crunch time were, I won't say uncontested, but could definitely have been contested more. And we knew that Miami was going to have to hit 3s to win this game, and yet we still played off of them and prevented them from driving the ball, which is fine, but you also have to understand that they're going to have to hit 3s to beat you. So I think we need to do a better job of getting out in their face.
Yeah, hindsight's 20/20, obviously, but I almost would have preferred them to sell out for the 3, and if Likes has to get into the paint, I feel much more comfortable having 5'7" Likes in the paint than from behind the arc.
Absolutely, me too. And that you mentioned how we kind of got lucky on that last play. I definitely agree because I think it was 10 seconds or so was left when Luke hit that shot to tie it, and they inbounded the ball, and, Likes was just walking up the court. And I remember, standing in the crowd thinking to myself, guys, you got to get up on him when he gets to half court because he's just going to step into this three. And I don't know, I just didn't feel good about it at all. Thankfully, he missed it, but I definitely think that was his doing by missing the shot. I don't think we forced a miss there, which is unfortunate to think about, that they could have won that game in such a climactic fashion like that.
Yeah, I would have been mad, but they would have deserved that. They would have earned that.
I think they played well enough to beat us yesterday, and that's why it's, it feels good today to look back on it and say, okay, we escaped that one.
Yeah, no, one of the big things was we got out-rebounded, too. They had 39 rebounds, we had 32 rebounds, and the previous 2 games where we'd been out-rebounded, we'd lost. So this is hopefully a sign that we can, lose the game on the board but still win the game overall, but I don't know. When we're not a strong rebounding team, where it's just not a good team.
That's exactly right. And there's an old saying in football when you say, it comes down to blocking and tackling. Well, in basketball, it comes down to shooting and rebounding.
Mm-hmm.
And, thankfully yesterday we did one of those well, being the shooting. But we're definitely going to have to figure out a way to get our bigs on the glass more.
Yeah. Well, I'm a little worried, for a team like Duke, where so many of their guys are big. Let's see, our leading rebounder is Luke, and he's great on the boards, but against someone like Zion Williamson, who knows how that's going to go.
You're exactly right. I mean, we'll get a chance to talk about Duke a lot extensively as we get closer to that game, but just early thoughts on that is that you're exactly right. A team like them with such athletic bigs like Zion we're going to have to do a lot better, boxing out and getting on the glass. Otherwise, they'll have, 3 opportunities each time they go down the court.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, like you said, we're going to talk about it in extensive depth in next week's episode.
Yep.
But just initially, I think if we win the rebounding game, we have a chance. If we get out-rebounded, I don't think there's any chance we win this game.
yeah, foreshadowing for Duke, I think we got to rebound well and we have to shoot the ball very well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But again, we'll get into that extensively next episode. So that was the exciting game against Miami. Why don't we transition into tomorrow's game on Monday, February 11th against Virginia. So last night, Virginia lost the game to Duke, and really I don't want to say they laid an egg, but they just didn't look like they matched up against Duke very well. I think they played better in their away game, that first game that they played in Durham.
I agree, and the score would definitely agree with you as well, Ben. But, last night for Virginia, I think they did some things well, watching that game, but where they messed up is they allowed Duke to get off to a fast start from beyond the arc.
Mm-hmm.
And really, when you look at Tony Bennett's teams in the past few years and how you have success against Virginia and the way they play defense and the way they play in general, you have to shoot the ball well from beyond the arc. You have to make them respect defending the whole court. You can't make this a game where you can't hit a three, where they one and done opportunities and they're taking their time using all the shot clock to beat you and make it a low scoring game. You can't let that happen.
Yeah. Well, I think Duke, in a way, gives UNC a blueprint to beating Virginia, because they shot 57.8% from the field. They shot 62% from 3. That'll beat any team,
Yeah.
So I think as long as we can get off to a hot start like they did, I think we can control the game better. It's not like Virginia shot poorly. They were 47% from the field, more than 40% from 3. I think the worst thing we can do is let them get hot.
Absolutely. And the way Virginia likes to play completely contradicts what UNC likes to do. Virginia doesn't want to run at all, and North Carolina wants to run the whole time. So it's about controlling the game, like you said. And the first way we can establish that in our favor is by, having success shooting the ball early.
Yeah. But I mean, you mentioned Virginia just being a very different team from UNC? Like, what makes them so hard to score on?
Well, it makes them so hard to score on is their defensive scheme, and it's called the pack line defense. And basically what that is it's a variation of a man-to-man defense. So kind of like, Tar Heels play straight man-to-man oftentimes. So just, everybody has a guy, you follow him, you shadow him, don't let him score. Well, Virginia's is similar, but also a good bit different, because the big difference between the pack line defense and the basic man-to-man defense is that the only person guarding an actual man is the guy who has the ball. So, for example, if you have the ball, Ben, and I'm on Virginia's team, I'm guarding you, but my 4 teammates are not going to match up off ball with the rest of the offensive players. They will play kind of a zone look inside the arc, but whoever has the ball gets manned. So it's a little bit of zone and man together. It's both. It's really both put together, and it's put together nicely. And Tony Bennett does a great job of coaching it. And they've had a lot of success against us with it.
So historically, we don't match up too well against that defensive scheme?
No, because they get back and transition very well. Oftentimes we're not able to get out and run and really create 2-on-1, 3-on-2 opportunities for ourselves in transition. So by the time we do get the ball off the court, they're set. And because of that, they're able to communicate. They're able to, figure out what they want to do, and they're able to get in our face and force us to take jump shots.
I mean, to some extent, Miami did that. They tried to slow the game down and make the Heels play out of their element, and I think that worked in their favor.
Yeah.
So that might be what Virginia tries to do. Really control the clock, control the pace of the game, force our normally quick transition game into some turnovers. I honestly feel like we live and die by this breakneck speed that we play at. But hopefully we live by it come Monday.
Yeah.
I mean, it is just such a different team. We average essentially 16 points per game more than them, but they average 20 points fewer against. We shoot around the same field goal percentage at 47.5 roundabout. We out-rebound them, we out-assist them. It's just two very different styles, and we're going to see which one prevails tomorrow night.
Absolutely. They're not going to try to outscore us. They're going to try to control it. They're going to control the clock. They're going to make the most of every possession they get, and they're going to try to limit our possessions to one-and-done opportunities.
Yeah.
So the key is going to be to get rebounds. It's going to be to hit our open threes when we get them. And it's going to be to, if they're going to spend the whole shot clock to take a shot, we've got to play defense for the full 30 seconds.
Yeah, no, I agree. But who are some of the Virginia players that you're most concerned about?
Well, the offense and really the whole team seems to run through Kyle Guy and Ty Jerome. Kyle Guy is the leading scorer on their team with 14.6 points per game and a shooting percentage of 44.9 from the field. So he leads them in that regard. But Ty Jerome is the leading assist guy with almost 5 a game. So it kind of runs through those two guys. They play point guard and shooting guard. But there's also DeAndre Hunter. There's also Jack Salt, who is a presence inside. That guy can rebound with the best of them. And I think that's really a matchup that we're going to have to watch Monday.
Well, that's going to be a real tough assignment when they have Luke in there playing the 5.
Absolutely.
Do you think they bring in Huffman more? Do you think Brooks plays more minutes? How do you think they defend against someone as big and physical as Salt?
I don't think we can afford to have Luke matched up on Salt too much down in the post. I think Luke could probably score on Salt because I think he has a little bit of a speed advantage. But Salt is too big and strong for Luke inside. I think we're going to see a lot of Huffman. We'll see some Garrison. We might even see some Sterling Manley. Who knows?
Anyone else other than those two guys that you think the Tar Heels might be concerned about?
Well, I mean, you always have to pay attention to just really anyone who comes off the bench for them. Really, they're a complete team, Ben. I mean, Virginia is not a flashy team to watch. But really the guys I mentioned would be the main people we would have to devote our time to. But Virginia is the type of team that, you take away those 4 guys or you limit those 4 guys we mentioned, someone else that we don't know could have a big night and beat us. They're such a good team and they play together. It's the way they are.
Yeah.
They're very annoying to play against, to be honest with you, because of the style that we've already mentioned a little bit, the defensive style that they do play with the pack line. It's frustrating to watch, especially for our style of play, wanting to go so quickly and so fast.
Yeah, I think we get spoiled sometimes by just how fast and aggressive UNC plays a lot of the time.
Absolutely. Sometimes I'm just like, guys, slow down. We don't have to go 100 miles an hour in a 50.
Mm-hmm.
Just take a second. It's not always going to be good for us to, get to the other side of the court in 2 seconds.
Yeah. Well, ESPN's Basketball Power Index gives UVA a 57.6% chance of winning this game. This is at home. This is in Chapel Hill. But talking about that, do you think home field advantage is going to help us out at all?
Well, the Smith Center is going to help us tremendously, I think. Being in there Saturday against Miami was awesome. The environment was great, and I think it'll be just as good or even more loud on Monday for such a, great opponent that Virginia is. I think it'll help us, but again, I don't want to sound like a broken record here, but Virginia's style of play travels.
Mm-hmm.
They don't rely on shooting the amount of 3-point balls that we do, or even Duke does, or some of the other high-powered offenses do. They're very methodical. They're very under control all the time, and that kind of style will travel, and I think it will tomorrow. And the Tar Heels will have to come out and play their game and try to control this from the start, because if Virginia gets them in a situation where they're taking 20-some foot jump shots and not getting rebounds, and then we just repeat the cycle of a Virginia layup and then a missed 3 by us and then another Virginia layup, and then it'll be a long night and, quite frankly, a very boring night.
Yeah, and if we get behind, let them start controlling stuff. Oh, yeah, I can already see that being very, very frustrating. But, yeah, hopefully our home field advantage will help. A couple weeks ago when they played NC State in Raleigh, they narrowly won that game in overtime. And I think one of the biggest reasons was the fact that NC State forced them into a bunch of turnovers.
Yeah.
So I think we just have to match up and play fundamental good defense. Essentially not what we played against Miami.
Yeah, you can't make too many mistakes.
Yeah.
You can't turn the ball over. You have to be very efficient on offense. You got to make crisp passes. You can't make lazy passes. You got to be decisive in everything you do.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna find out kind of what the Tar Heels are made of this season.
This is definitely our most high-profile match.
I think this is
far.
the toughest game that we will have played all year to this point. You could argue maybe Gonzaga being another one that you could say would be tougher, but I think for the style that we like to play, I think Virginia will be the hardest team we've played yet, and this will tell us a lot going forward about what we can do against teams of this caliber.
Yeah, whether we deserve to be in the conversation for a 1 seed come March.
Absolutely, and we'll have to play well if we want to be in that.
Well, super excited for that game, and of course, next week's episode, we'll give you guys the rundown on this game, and who do we play after that? We play Wake Forest, right?
Yep, after the Virginia game tomorrow night, we will travel to Winston-Salem to play Wake Forest on Saturday, and then immediately following that, we play Duke on the 20th.
Yeah, so.
Wake will be tough too. Again, kind of briefly mentioning this, Ben, before we move on to the next topic. Wake Forest is another example of that trap game that I was mentioning Miami kind of was, where it can be kind of a perfect storm, where whether we win or lose to Virginia, we have Duke right after Wake Forest. Duke and Virginia on opposite sides of that game, you can forget about Wake Forest in there, and especially because I think they're like 3-8 in the ACC. I may be wrong on that, but it's something like that. They're definitely not in the top half of the ACC standings right now. Mm-hmm. So you can definitely forget about that game and not play your best basketball, and that could be a loss.
You do not want to be traveling to Durham to play Duke coming off a loss to Wake Forest.
Absolutely not.
Hey, that has all the makings of a trap game. Yeah. And I feel like just the phrase trap game is cliche, but I think that's something to watch out for.
It's definitely a real concept that I think a lot of teams fall into in both football and basketball, where they're looking back at a game they just played and they're looking forward to a game that they really want to win. And the game in between that seems like, okay, we just got to get through this so we can move on. And then they end up losing that, which ends up having huge implications on what they're able to do later on.
Yeah. But don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Heel Deal Podcast, because we like to do some in-game takes. You guys can interact with us during the game. And so we'll definitely be doing that tomorrow during the Virginia game. But to close out the show today, let's quickly go over the football recruits from this past week. National Signing Day came and went, and so far it's looking surprisingly good for Mac Brown and his crew. We definitely have the best class of all 2-win teams from last season.
You can say that again.
Yeah, according to 24/7 Sports, we have like the 32nd overall class, which is pretty great. It's in the upper half of the ACC, and I guess that is a lot of like just the name power that Mac Brown and his staff have. But we have 4 4-star recruits. Sam Howell's a big one.
Absolutely.
So he actually enrolled early, so he's going to be able to compete for that starting quarterback job in the spring, during spring practice, and he won't have to wait until summer or fall. So that'll be huge. It'll be great if our quarterback situation is done and dusted by the time we all get here in the fall. Mm-hmm. All the new wide receivers, the line, have all had a chance to work with Sam Howell. This is assuming he wins the starting position. Let's see, we have a ton of really good 3-stars. We got Caffrey Brown, wide receiver, 4-star wide receiver. We have Eugene Asante, outside linebacker, 4 stars. Tristan Miller, offensive tackle, 4 stars. These are some big, important positions that we're looking pretty decent in. What's your initial take on next year's class?
Well, first of all, I think of especially the names you mentioned, Ben, Sam Howell, Caffrey Brown, Eugene Asante, and Tristan Miller. I don't think we get any of those 4 guys without this new staff. And that's not to say that I think Larry Fedora is a terrible recruiter, because he did bring good players here. But I'm pretty confident in saying that those 4, for example, would not have come had we not had this new staff. And as far as what I think it means for our team, it gives us a lot of talent in some positions that we really needed. I think watching the team last year, it's evident that we need some security at the quarterback position. We also, have Anthony Ratliff-Williams leaving for the draft, so loading up on some receivers is definitely a good time. Mm-hmm. And then the linebacker depth is always good, and then the offensive line, to give your quarterback a chance to develop, you've got to be able to protect him. Yeah. And we still have a great stable of running backs here. So I think, loading up at that position as well gives us a good shot to both run and pass the ball effectively.
Yeah, I do think, of all the weak positions we had on the team last year, our offensive line really wasn't one of them. They were steady in most facets of the game, and that'll be nice to be able to bring in a new quarterback into the system behind a stable offensive line. So, hey, hopefully that'll be good, but we'll have plenty of, previews for the upcoming football season. But that was just the news from National Signing Day. Really, really interesting stuff. Right now, I think we're all more focused on basketball heading towards March.
Absolutely. We're getting closer and closer, and some really big games coming up, so it's going to be very exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know soon we'll give you guys some men's basketball recruit information, as that develops. Hopefully we'll see certain 5-star point guard in Chapel Hill soon, but we'll see how it goes. Anyway, my name is Ben, and this is Zach, and we thank you guys for listening. This has been the Heel Deal Podcast, and we'll see you guys next week.
Yep, and thanks for that, Ben. And guys, always remember the most important thing: go to Hell Duke.
Go to Hell Duke.